Hello, it's Tom, and joining me today is Rich.
Hello there.
So today we're looking at Kingdom Hearts 1.5 and 2.5 HD Remix on PS4. Now the footage we're seeing here is PS4 Pro running at 4K. I suppose the most distinctive thing about this package, there are 6 games on the disc, 2 of which are purely cinematics, and the rest are actually running at 4K on PS4 Pro.
Right, okay, so this is native 4K footage that we're looking at now. I recommend Chrome for playback on that if you want to see that. Or download the full fat file from digitalfoundry.net. But the point is that this is native 4K at 60 frames per second, right?
That's right. There is an exception there though. The cinematic stuff, the in-engine cutscenes, they're 30, but the gameplay is 60, which is pretty awesome, I'd say. I didn't expect it, to be honest. It's rare that we see that combination of 4K and 60.
Okay, so just to clear something up, we actually did a Kingdom Hearts video a while back, which seemed to... now, that was based on the PSP and 3DS titles, right?
That's right, yeah, 2.8.
Okay. And this is the original PlayStation 2 versions of the titles, which were then ported to PlayStation 3, and now they've kind of reached their final iteration on PS4 and Pro, is that right?
You could say it's the ultimate iteration, yeah.
Okay, just so we're clear.
Yeah, just so we're clear. There's a bit of history to this, actually. According to Tetsuya Nomura, who directed these games 15 years ago, if you can believe it, they lost the original assets, the original source code for this game. Which meant that they had to literally dig up a retail copy and extract the assets from that and recreate this game, this remaster on PS3 using that code.
Okay, so they essentially had to recode it from scratch then, I guess, based on decompiling the original retail code.
Yeah, I'm guessing so. I mean, it happens in the industry, doesn't it? Games back then just sort of get lost and they're not archived properly. And it's a shame in this case, but they did a good job on PS3. It was 30 FPS on PS3 then, and they managed to replace some of the assets with nicer, cleaner textures, and also redid the soundtrack with proper orchestrated versions of the original soundtrack. But not all textures were improved. They were kind of as a mix and match. You can probably see it in this footage we're going to show now, which is between PS2 and PS4 Pro.
Okay, so what are the native resolutions here? Obviously PS4 Pro 4K 60 frames per second. PlayStation 2 is looking a bit sad and forlorn by comparison.
Yeah, it is a bit. Right, so the stats are, on the original PS2, we had it running natively at 512 by 384. That is then kind of upscaled to 512 by 448, which is what most CRTs used, sort of standard via NTSC back then. But yeah, natively it's 512 by 384, which, if you can believe it, had no anti-aliasing back in the day.
Well, you know, these assets were originally designed to be seen on a CRT. You know, the old boxy displays, as opposed to today's flat screens with the kind of pixel precision. So yeah, I mean, you actually got away with quite a lot of stuff back in the day that just wouldn't pass muster today, and resolution is one of them.
I really didn't notice it back in the day, so yeah, you're right, CRTs really hid a lot of nastiness in the original game image. But the stats are interesting. It's fascinating to see how far we've come. So for perspective, the PS2 version runs with 2.4% of the pixel output of the full 4K we're getting on PS4 Pro on the right. Or to put it another way, PS4 Pro delivers 42 times the number of pixels as the original PS2 version's native res.
Yeah, that is absolutely insane. It does indeed show how far we've come, but at the same time, I think what sort of stands out here is that the quality of the kind of art really sort of still holds up. Obviously we've got higher quality textures in there, but you know, it's the same core aesthetic really, and it still kind of looks pretty good even on sort of today's hardware.
Yeah, definitely. So yes, this is the first time we've seen it at 60 FPS. I guess that's the big deal on PS4, but from what I've been reading online, this move to 60 FPS has caused a few issues, in that the physics and the animation have suffered from bugs and glitches here and there as a result of doubling the refresh.
Okay, so how does that work then? I mean, essentially I guess they've had to recode that then. Is it actually fixed here, or there's still glitches here and there?
So that was at the launch on the Japanese version. I'm hearing that the 4GB patch that landed with the Western release of this PS4 package is actually fixing most of those, if not all. We'll have to dive in further to really see the extent of the changes there. But assuming everything is fixed, this makes it the ultimate version of Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. I mean, you get 4K, 60 FPS, also improved loading times over the PS3 version, which was a kind of step back. There were longer load times than people were used to. This fixes that, and of course you get the higher quality orchestrated tracks from the PS3 version. So pretty much everything in one go. It's really impressive.
Yeah, it sounds like a win-win all around, really. I mean, I haven't really played Kingdom Hearts at all. I played it, I think, in the original PlayStation 2, just the first one back in the day. This was sort of in the kind of Final Fantasy X era, really, wasn't it? That kind of era of the PlayStation 2.
Yeah, it came out a year or two after Final Fantasy X, and so it was the last game that actually had the Squaresoft name before they became Square Enix. Well, the quality of the graphics themselves beneath the higher resolution window, I suppose it holds up in the similar way to cel-shaded games like Wind Waker.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain titles that just seem kind of timeless, and if you look at the likes of Metal Gear Solid 2, Metal Gear Solid 3, they kind of just work at high resolution, even with slightly rejigged assets. And it's just a certain kind of style, and here you've got that flat shaded look, and even the kind of low geometry still sort of looks okay, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's just that very careful attention to stylization that Disney had. You can tell the developer went to great strain to recreate those faithfully and make sure they animated beautifully even back then. So it's really a testament to how much work they put in at the time, 15 years ago, that it still actually holds up.
Typically, when one of these remasters happens, there's usually some kind of gaffe that's made. So if we go back to Final Fantasy X, I believe it was, there was the random number generator issue.
Yes.
Is there anything in this that has been picked up on so far that isn't kind of authentic to the original game?
Only the physics stuff, as I mentioned, moving to 60 FPS. I imagine there's something to do with the keyframing of animations that's affected that. When you double the frame rate, it makes them speed up and it changes the logic. But as far as I'm aware, the latest patch that came with it seems to have fixed all of that. But I'd be interested to know if people in the comments have any insight into this, whether they can pick out any examples of where this isn't fixed. But as far as I can see, it's very close to the original game that I played.
Right, it's fascinating to see that code was essentially hard-coded to 30 frames per second. I mean, I think I've seen it before in a few titles, like the original Halo, where they had to fix that in the Master Chief Collection. Still sort of looked a bit glitchy in places. I mean, obviously we've got this title, we've got the sort of ports of the handheld ones as well.
Yeah, so this combines the two PS3 remaster packages into one. So to go through them, there's Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, which are 4K, 60 FPS with 30 FPS cutscenes in places, and the pre-rendered FMVs, the video, pretty much the same asset as we had back in the PS2 day. They haven't had a chance to really delve in and make that, worthy of a 1080p display, even let alone a 4K display. So it sticks out when it goes to pre-rendered stuff.
Right, okay, so they had pre-rendered stuff, and if they didn't have the original assets, if those were lost, then those original FMVs would have probably been all they had, unless there was some kind of backup there.
Fortunately, they're only maybe one or two. I think the beginning and the ending use pre-rendered stuff in these games, so for the most part it doesn't really affect the image quality. They had the foresight to do everything in engine here, so it's more damaging on the DS port to PS4. But again, when that switches to in-engine, it's 4K, a DS game at 4K basically, and it looks alright, it's a card game essentially. And next you have the PSP game Birth by Sleep, which again looks very decent. It's 4K, and where there's pre-rendered stuff it looks a bit ropey, but mostly it's in-engine and it looks pretty decent. Okay,
so we're going to wrap this one up shortly then, but bottom line, did you enjoy playing this? Would you recommend it?
As a fan, going back to these, it's been pretty great actually. The gameplay of the original Kingdom Hearts has a few issues with platforming, but the camera at least is improved and brought up to date. But as a compilation of everything to gear you up for Kingdom Hearts 3, which is coming up in a year or two I suppose, this is it pretty much. You've got everything on one disc at last, and beyond that there's the 2.8 collection, which fills in the cracks otherwise. But yeah, definitely, if you're a big fan of Kingdom Hearts, this is the one. Right, so that'll do it. If you found this interesting or insightful in any way, please do give us a like or subscribe. And as ever, we have the original 4K source file to this video on our Patreon website at digitalfoundry.net, so feel free to give that a check out. But until next time, from me and Rich, thanks for watching.
Gosh, are these the Heartless guys?
Let's go get them to see.
The key!
Come on!